Welcome back, Year 13s. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a seriously essential Cambridge A-Level explainer. Think of this session as an academic masterclass on the very foundations of purity, morality, and justice in Islamic law. We're going to be unpacking the first 3 verses of Surah An-Nur. It's a deeply profound chapter of the Quran, and it essentially provides the entire framework for social responsibility.
But before we get into the text, let's ground this in reality. I want you to imagine a scenario. Think about what happens when a society just starts to normalize immoral relationships, through social media, films, peer influence, the stuff we see every day. What are the actual long-term effects of that on individuals, on families, and on the wider community? There's a reason every functioning society throughout history establishes strict moral boundaries. Keep those critical questions in the back of your mind as we analyze the text today.
So, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll cover context and characteristics. Second, a textual analysis of verses 1 through 3. Third, the definitions of ayah. And finally, jurisprudence and safeguards.
Okay, Section 1, Context and Characteristics. Let's build our foundational understanding of Surah An-Nur.
Think about the linguistic choice of the word surah for a second. It literally translates to something conveying deep honor and loftiness. The chapter kicks off with this incredibly powerful declaration: we have sent this chapter. Now, when we study the Asbab al-Nuzul, the context of revelation, we know this was revealed to address very specific social conditions in Medina. So this phrasing isn't just an intro. It indicates the immense weight of the rulings. It's a verbal signal telling the listener, hey, pay attention, what follows is absolutely crucial to building a moral society.
Because Surah An-Nur is a Madaniya surah, means it was revealed during the Medinan period, it has a very specific focus. The Muslim community was in the middle of establishing a functioning state, right? So these surahs focus heavily on practical legislation. They give us the detailed rulings on acts of devotion, everyday transactions, Sharia penalties, the family system, and the rules of governance. It's all about determining the clear, practical objectives of the law.
Moving on to Section 2. Textual analysis of verses 1 through 3. Let's get right into the primary text.
Verse 1 really pulls no punches. It establishes these rulings not as, mere suggestions or good ideas, but as clear, obligatory commandments. The text literally leaves zero room for ambiguity. And the ultimate goal stated here, it's mindfulness. The objective is creating a society that is highly, acutely conscious of its actions, its social responsibility, and the divine boundaries set before it.
I want us to pause here and do a little Socratic reflection. Why must we reflect rather than just receive admonition? Well, the text notes that while someone who deeply reflects will naturally receive admonition, just getting a warning doesn't guarantee you're going to think deeply about it. Receiving admonition basically means you heed a warning to avoid a sin and its punishment. Pretty straightforward. But reflecting, that's a whole different level. That requires thinking deeply about the information using all your faculties: your body, your mind, and your heart. The verses are challenging us to do the latter.
All right, Section 3, Definitions of ayah in context.
You've probably heard the word ayah translated simply as verse, but it's actually much richer than that. There are 3 distinct meanings of ayah found throughout the Quran. Sometimes it means a sign and a proof, like the barren earth coming to life. Other times it refers to a literal miracle, like the clear signs given to Moses. But in our context, when verse 1 says revealed in it clear commandments, or clear ayats, it specifically means the exact words of the Quran containing laws that were sent down from Allah to His Prophet. We are talking about practical textual legislation. And that brings us to verse 2, where we see the strict legal penalty established for zina, which is illicit sexual relations. The Quran explicitly mandates 100 lashes for the Gair Muhsan, that's the unmarried offender. Now, it is absolutely crucial for your A-level syllabus to note that classical jurists, drawing directly from the Sunnah, distinguish this from the Muhsan, or previously married offender, which carries the ruling of stoning. The text here also commands that enforcers must not let pity make them lenient, and it mandates a public witness. Why? To serve as a profound deterrent, sending a ripple effect of accountability straight through the community. Then, verse 3 hits us with the heavy moral implications. It effectively isolates those who normalize such actions from the broader community of believers, all to protect societal purity. It states that a fornicator would only marry someone of the exact same moral standing, another fornicator or an idolater. By concluding with, this is all forbidden to the believers, the text draws a really stark boundary.
It's telling the community that normalizing zina fundamentally compromises your standing within the faithful society itself.
Which brings us to Section 4, Jurisprudence and Safeguards. How on earth is this strictly implemented?
Well, before any judge can apply a law, the crime has to be crystal clear. In Islamic jurisprudence, this falls under the term zina. The legal definition is strictly sexual intercourse between a man and a woman who are not married to one another according to a recognized lawful Sharia contract. Defining this clear distinction between lawful marriage and zina is the very first safeguard against arbitrary or unfair punishment.
Now, this specific punishment is what's called a had. That means it's a fixed penalty mandated by divine text. This is completely different from ta'zir, which is a discretionary punishment that a judge can decide on based on the situation. This had serves a distinct twofold purpose. First, it spiritually purifies the individual of their guilt. It acts as an expiation for them. Second, it protects the wider society from the spread of actions that are known to destroy the family unit.
And here is where we see the absolute profound justice of the Islamic system. Vigilantism? Completely, 100% forbidden. You cannot take the law into your own hands. Implementation requires impossibly high legal standards. We are talking about the testimony of 4 reliable eyewitnesses to the actual act itself, or a completely uncoerced confession. This incredibly strict standard is entirely designed to prevent false accusations. Plus, these hudood punishments can exclusively be carried out by a legitimate judicial authority representing the state. Never, ever by individuals.
So as we wrap up this masterclass explainer, I want to leave you with a real-world task for your own reflection. How do these strict boundaries and these intense evidentiary safeguards translate to protecting modern society? I mean, think about how these principles of justice and morality reflect in contemporary legal frameworks, like UAE laws, especially today. We live in a digital age where social media constantly challenges privacy and modesty. So how does this balance of severe deterrence and rigorous justice actually function today? Think it over. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep reflecting on these critical frameworks.